Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good afternoon. It's Monday. It's a new week. It's a new model. And yes, it is Maria. It is not the Clipper. Clipper will come in time. I was looking at the parts, and I was doing my due diligence on references and all that kind of stuff. And I came down to the two choices. Well, I put in my 2001 and I fast forwarded through the Dawn of Man sequence to get to where the Space Clipper was shown. Space Clipper is shown for all of 45 seconds, maybe a minute. I'm not counting the whole Blue Danube. I'm counting the time of that you actually see it on screen. And I think the reason why the Clipper has an inflated sense of importance is because it's on the poster. I really think that's why you see, why it's in the mind's eye, the public mind, more than it actually is in the movie. I think it's even in the movie less than the moon bus. I think the moon bus is in quite a lot more than that. So, and of course you get your waltz going, and you get your reference playing, and then you find yourself dozing off because of the Of course, it might have had something to do with me being on the roof all weekend cleaning gutters, which is never fun, and losing the hour, actually gaining the hour, on the time change, threw my body clock all the way off. But, it only took a couple of minutes of Blue Danube, and the next thing you know, I'm waking up to the, Rings of Jupiter, or, the Infinite and Beyond. That's what woke me up. So then I put that aside, and then I pulled out my copy of Metropolis. Now, this is a convoluted story, so I'll keep it short. When I was younger and first moved to North Carolina, the first thing I did was I got a job in a video store. I think everybody about my age, if they had the opportunity, chances are they worked in a video store. And my first exposure to Metropolis, now other than knowing it culturally and knowing its significance and all that, and seeing some old grainy public domain black and white silent movie stuff, was the Giorgio Moroder version of Metropolis, colorized and all that kind of stuff. It may not have been the purest film experience, but by God, it's a lot of fun. And because we worked in a video store where we weren't allowed to run movies, we could only run music videos or things that were musicals. We would run the heck out of Metropolis when it came out. And to tell you the truth, the first VCR I had in my house was a Betamax. Yes, it was. It was a Betamax. And the first tape I bought when I bought my Betamax is I bought a copy of Metropolis, the Giorgio Moroder version, to go with it. And because you had the hi-fi Betamax, and it just sounded so good. And to tell you the truth, as soon as I put the copy of Metropolis in, I was awake, I was happy, I was tapping my toes, I was remembering good times. And that's what made the decision of why I'm working on Maria this week rather than the Clipper. I'm still gathering research on the Clipper. I'm still thinking about how to handle the markings, the Pan Am markings that aren't there. I'm going to think about maybe printing up some people to go in the cabin, things like that. But this is what I wanted to work on. No lights, no decals, no bloody A, B, C, or D. This is just Metropolis. This is just Maria from Metropolis. You can call it the Maschinenmensch. I'm not going to try to do the original Klingon on that. But I think we can do this in such a way that it's going to dress it up, make a nice little display. Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm building up the inner body. And you could say that maybe this model is a little over-engineered. I I wouldn't, be screaming that from the streets, but I wouldn't stop you from screaming that from the streets because, frankly, it's a little over-engineered. I like the stand here, her throne. I would love it if somebody could actually come up with a way of, doing the animated rings around her. That would be fun. Just some of that ring LED with the up and down. Ooh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Sorry, I sound like Hal there. Wait a minute. Just a moment. Just a moment. I have this ring. No, it's a little too small. This one's a little too small. I would need a little bit bigger, but you could do the ring. Of course, now every time I look at this thing, I start doing the music in my head. But I've got these. This ring would be way too big. But you get the idea, going up and down along the body of the robot there, who in the original was named Hell in memory of Rotwang's wife, who he lost to Joe Frieder, and then the son is Frieder's son. But he made look like Maria. And your typical capitalist, I guess he'd be capitalist, because Frieder was certainly an industrialist, trying to exploit the workers, and so he took the form, or he made the robot take the form of the gal who was trying to organize the workers and teach them that there was something more to life than giving their whole time to the man. And try to quash that plot. And I think I've given you more insight into the story of Metropolis than you ever wanted to hear. But it's, the old, the heart must be the mediator between the hands and the head. The brain and the brain and the hands need a mediator, which is the heart. So that will suffice for your moral lesson today. I've just glued together some of the right and left halves, like these feet and the hands and the inner body that we are going to be cladding the outer plates to. And I need to decide whether I gotta see how some of these plates are going to end up looking on the body, because I think I might want to paint this a contrasting color. I need to see how much of the outer armor is actually going to be seen. Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Lots of stuff going on today. Most importantly, get out and vote. And of course, by the time this airs or gets uploaded, we'll have a better idea of how the results of all of that turned out. But as for right now, it's a grand mystery. Working on the Maria, because I refuse to try to say this big long German name, Maschinenmensch. We're going to call it the Maria, the robot from Metropolis. And I'm piecing together some of the outer carapace because I want to see how much of the inner structure is going to be visible. We need to prime that, we need to paint it, and we need to do that before we attach the outer structure. But I wanted to see just how extensive that exposure is. And like I suspected, it was going to be elbows, knees, hips, the joint areas, much like would turn up later on 3PO. You have these areas where you have an undersuit, and then you have a framework over top of that. So now that I can kind of see where we're going, I can pull these plates off, clean those up really well, because I don't know who the genius is. I really wish they'd stop doing this. This new way of attaching parts to the sprue. I like the good old-fashioned way where you just have a little bit of nib that goes out to where the plastic flows into the part, and you don't have this honking big overlap onto the part. I don't know, even with the right set of nippers, it can get obnoxious to cut. These guys here, that big overlap. Just do like this. Just do the plain old basic, everybody has been doing it for 100 years this way. That's good enough for me. Because it just makes more crap you got to clean off of your part. So, what I want to do is get these parts back off of the inner frame, get a primer and a base color on the inner frame, and start cleaning up these outer shell pieces. Played around this morning with all these clear bits for the chair. I suppose if you're going to light those, that would be fun, but that's an awful lot of lighting. Again, I don't know why they had to make these two parts. They could have easily made that one part, but again, not my... I'm an armchair model designer. I'm sure they have considerations in hand, but getting all these pushed in. Still don't know exactly how I'm going to paint this, because it was more than likely meant to be metal in the world of Metropolis. I don't see it as stone, and I certainly don't see it as wood. So I don't know what I'm imagining that chair was supposed to be metal. So we'll figure that out. And I need it to be a color that stands out away from... I'm not going to be painting her gold. I mean, the gold is a latter day invention. She was more of a dark, almost a jet exhaust color, and I think that's what I'm going to use with a little bit of the highlight on top of it. I think, as a matter of fact, I think her undersuit is going to be the burnt iron. I think that will show up nicely. Alright, I've got the inner suit sanded and primed, and once that primer's dry, I'll put a top coat of the darker color on that. I'm starting to clean up the outer shell parts that go on, and this is a very frustrating model to build, and it's not because, well, it's half of the way it's because of the actual design of it, but half of it is because of how it was molded, how it was, where they chose to put the pins and all of that. But as a modeler, you would see something like this, and you would run screaming into the night thinking, oh, those seams are not matching. And on this subject, it's not supposed to. This is supposed to be a ridge front and back. This was how the robot was built. Nay, this was how the robot suit was built. So when you get pieces like this and you think that's a poor match, and then you realize, or you've done your research, or you look at a picture, and then you realize that's what it's supposed to be, that's one thing. And then you get to things like this, and it's like, okay, well, is that supposed to be a sloppy seam, or is that supposed to be flush? And you have to really go on a case by case, in which cases are these bad seams, in which cases are these accurate depictions of bad seams on a kit, or on the on the actual suit. Take these hands, for example. Is that ridge supposed to be there? Well, yes, it is. And it looks, to my eye, like a bad fit. But that's how it's supposed to be. So that's the kind of stuff that's driving me bananas right now, because I'm trying to make things fit and make nice clean seams. For instance, this should be a clean seam here on both sides of the elbow. That should be a clean seam. And then right underneath it, you have something that has a huge overlap. So it's maddening, because I got to go by and figure out exactly which ones of these have overlaps, which one of these are clean, and it's maddening. I'm also going through, and I am shortening a lot of these pins. These things where it goes through the bodysuit and then attaches to the back piece. You don't need it to go nearly as deep as it does. As long as it hits each other there and has enough surface to glue, that's fine. It doesn't need to go all the way into the other side. Yes, that makes a tight fit, but it's just a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So going in, and I'm shortening some of these pins, and on the forearms as well. they don't need to be as long as they are. It just makes it more complicated when you take, because you want to push it together and test the fit, pull it apart, clean it up, push it back together. And if you do that any more than 3 times, it's going to bust unless you've, taken some of the stress off of it and shortened it up. Okay, we're closing up for the day. I've got most of, not all of the parts primed. I've got bits of the inner body already sprayed with the darker metallic. That's going to hang over there to dry. Got the base primed out, and if you've been with the channel for any length of time, you'll know one of my pet peeves and how juvenile I think something like this is, where you have the name on the base like that, and it's like if you don't know what the character is from, having it say Metropolis isn't going to help you. It's like those Halloween costumes that say Batman on them. If you can't tell you're Batman, then it's a poor quality costume. No, and rather than scrape that off, I'm just going to paper over it and try to ignore it. But what we're going to do is, I'm still toying with this. If I'm going to try to make this look like stone, then maybe not the typical sandstone, maybe marble or something. So maybe we just have to put some funkiness to it to make it look a little bit more attractive. I'll check the bit of the film again to see whether I think it's made out of stone. Certainly the carving on the back, which is meant to be the to emulate the memorial to hell, was a stone. That was a stone obelisk, but that doesn't mean this is. So we're just going to continue to work on ahead. So all of this stuff is primed, and we'll let it sit overnight. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. I don't know if I'm going to do anything today. Yesterday, after I got back from voting, I went and got my latest COVID booster and my flu shot for the winter. And like what happened last time I got a COVID booster shot, I feel like 10 pounds of crapola in a 5-pound bag today. So I think I'm going to lay on the couch. And if I get motivated to do, now luckily this is Wednesday, like I said, it's Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I could finish this guy in 2 days. It's not all that much. But I'm just not feeling it today, so we may be called on account of fatigue. Morning, everybody. It's Thursday, and it's gateway to the weekend. And I have to report that I'm feeling much better today. Yesterday was a complete washout. I don't mind telling you, I got off the couch maybe twice. I didn't eat. I barely moved. It was a lost day. But feeling much better today, and so much so that I started early and put a black base coat on all of the armor pieces for Maria here. And what I'm going to do after, give them just a little bit longer to dry, is I'm going to hit them with their first coat of a, well, I think I'm going to use the metallic gray. It's not a gunmetal, it's a metallic gray. Gunmetal is going to be too dark, and what I'm wanting to do is to set up a contrast between the plating pieces, the outer suit and the inner suit. I want this to have a nice contrast to it, so that's going to be brighter metallic for the outer armor, and then I'm just going to dust it with just the tiniest amount of a titanium gold. It's not going to be a bright gold. It's not 3PO colored. I don't know why people get the idea that Maria was 3PO colored. 3PO was 3PO colored, but look at the black and white stills, and you would be able to surmise that if that was a bright gold, then it would show up. It would have shown, even if it was a bright silver, it would have shown up as a much brighter character in connection to the people in the scene. It would have been lighter. So I'm taking it more of a mid-range metallic, not a dark metallic, but a mid-range. So that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to do it that way. So, oh, I also wanted to thank Rob Schmidt, friend of the show, all around good egg. He is my Iwata guru. He is the man from whom I trust in all manners, all topics regarding airbrushes. He sent me a couple of these little guys, little spotlight LEDs that are going to go nicely on the base, something like that. And they're aimable. I can pose them, so I could put them in the front corners like that, and then pose them around. And that's going to give the base a little bit of life to it. I'm not going to light up all of those little clear pieces that came with the kit. So that's where we're at today. So waiting for this to dry, and then actually it's been a while, long enough for them to dry. I think I should go ahead and start putting the metallic gray on it. Okay, after long last, I am finally putting parts on this thing. I started with and I realized when I was going through the instructions and doing the test fitting back before I started painting, that there is definitely an order for these things, because some parts overlap some other parts, and it's easier to get to say, oh, you want to put this front body part on before you put the upper thigh parts on, because the plates overlap and it's easier to put. You won't be able to snake that underneath. But I found that same thing happens with the upper arms and the lower legs. So it's almost upper arms, lower legs, chest, and then lower arms and upper legs. It's you kind of building from the extremities in, but well, you know what I mean. It's the way the parts are overlapping. It's just a little bit easier to do it that way. So now once we get these parts on, I can sand up the seams. And remember what I said earlier about some of these seams are intentional. So be mindful of what seams are intentional and what seams aren't, and you won't waste time trying to close up seams that are supposed to be there. Okay, so I've hit my first seam that is a seam, and that is this upper arm bit right here. That is supposed to be one smooth thing, so I needed to sand that once those two pieces got together. I didn't figure I'd have to worry about too much on the inside, since you're not going to see that edge. Particularly once we get the back plate on, you're not going to. Well, you might see a little bit of that. Let me see. If I want to sand a little bit of. The tough part about these arms is that once you snip them off of the sprue, they are tough to tell apart, and they're meant to go obviously right and left, but they're not marked anyway on the part themselves, only on the sprue. Now you can match up the connecting pins, the locating pins. You can match those up and then try to make sure when you're painting with them or working with them that you put the right arm over here and the left arm over here or something like that, because it can get pretty easy to mix up. You have to remember that the back half, because they're virtually identical, the back half, the top is a flat cut and the bottom is a bevel cut, because the bottom has to follow the angle of that plate that is on the front side. So that's how you'll know whether you've got it upside down or not. So I'm gonna sand these, maybe touch them with obviously touch them with a little bit of paint, clean them up. Thank you. Touch those with some paint, and continue to work up the legs here. Now I need to I have to see whether the knee joint goes, or the knee top. Does that go on before the upper leg, or can I fit it in after the upper leg is on? Let me see. So if we do this, put that in place. Can I do... No, I think I have to... Well, I have to see which way it goes on. Oh, okay, the knee plate see, I had it backwards. I was doing that on the front. No, that's not what it says. That's interesting. Okay. The knee plate says it wants to go on like that. And it wants to go on before the bottom of the leg does. Well, that's not going to work because I've already got the bottom of the leg glued on. So I think I'm going to have to snip that pin because I'm not going to be able to use it. I should have read that a little bit more carefully. What do you know? Oh well. See, that was 42, which is the left knee, and so that's supposed to go here. I didn't even notice there was a hole in the front of the leg, to tell you the truth, in the underbody. But that should have gone on like that. Okay, well, we're just going to have to make those fit. Alrighty, lesson learned. Crisis averted. Put down your sandwich, it's okay. All I did was snip the pin off of it and then slid them down in behind that part. That went in fine. I was looking through the instructions to see whether they said anything particular about the knee pads. And they have the thigh front going on first, and then the knee pad. And oh, they're building from the leg. They're building from the thigh down. That's why. I was building from the ankle up. That's the difference. So at this point, it doesn't really matter since it's fixed. But yeah, that's see, and this is the stuff that's driving me nuts because that's a seam that's supposed to be there. But to me, that just raises all my hackles. And you don't want to see me with my hackles raised. Let's see. It says it mentions now at this point it is best to place the orbs on right and left thigh halves. Let me see what orbs they're talking about. Orbs number 43. Okay, those are these tiny little balls here. Where do they go? Loosely, at this point, it's best to place the orbs on the right and left thigh halves. Oh, okay. They go at the top of here. They go at the top of that. So it's saying it's best to do that now. Why? Why is it best to do that now? Are we going to be able to get to it after a while? Let me see. Yeah, once you put that arm in the way, it's going to be tougher to get to. I think that may be why they're saying that. I don't think that's that arm. Well, no, I bet you I can get in there with some tweezers and put that orb down later. Let me see how that back half fits on first. The back half of the leg, or the thigh part, the upper thigh. I think I'll hold off on the orb because this thigh is going to take some wrestling, I think. And it's all down to that knee. Let's see. We glue the back of those thighs on first. We do both of those. Like I did the have. Yeah, I think if we glue those in first, then we'll be able to and then put the fronts over top of them. Okay, let's do those next then. See, this is why it's important to paint the inside of the undersuit. Okay. Liberal amounts of 10X, which also helps lubricate the parts when they're going in. See, it goes in so much smoother when it's been lubricated. There. You must give those a second to dry and take a little bit of a break. Alrighty, I've come to a conclusion, and that is that I need to leave these forearms off for the time being because I've got putty on the seams right through here, and I'm not going to be able to sand those until I get the with the arms in the way, which also means, yes, I put the little orbs in their place. The orbs are at the top there. Now I can go ahead and put some of the other smaller details on, like these little brackets and the ribs and the other brackets at the top. I just can't do anything with the forearms or the nerts. Didn't think I had gotten anything on there. Let me see if I can scrape that off real quick. Stuff about this Tamiya putty, it gets everywhere. Just trying to keep these surfaces nice and clean. But yeah, let me go ahead and put those other details on, and that's really all I can do until that putty's dried and I've had a chance to sand it. Okay, if you'll forgive the headband, this is Maria mostly complete. Now, I was surprised and delighted to see that they provided an extra set of the brackets there. These are the shoulder or the chest brackets, and these are the ear brackets. And I was surprised. I didn't think that they would have gone to that extra step here, but you can see everybody's in. There's the chest, the little chest brackets, and then the ears. Ears right up there. So we're going to let this sit. We're going to let the we're going to zoom out. What we're going to do, we're going to let the putty cure, and I'm going to turn my attention to the chair. Just trying out the lights that Rob sent, and they're very nice. I did change one thing though. He said that they were made to go on 3 volts, and I put a resistor on them and I'm running them on 9 volts just because I want them to punch up a little bit brighter. But the beautiful thing about these is that they're infinitely posable, so I could run something like this and just tweak the positioning of it like you wouldn't believe. And that's what I'm turn it like that, and that's what I'm going to do, something like that. But yeah, those are beautiful. Now I'm going to put those the clear parts back under the bottom here. Let's pull you off for right now. Pull the whole chair off, because this thing is very lopsided by itself, and I'm not going to make any attempt to light those. So let's go ahead and glue those clear bits back on here, because those will just be painted over. Alrighty, we are finishing up on a Thursday night, and I've got Maria all built. I've got the arms on, which are drying now, and this is ready for tomorrow. I'm going to let the paint dry all night. Tomorrow we'll put the final top coat on it and we'll finish the chair. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's the last work day on Maria here, one way or t'other. Even if I don't finish, I will be finished, and then I will show you the stuff next week. But I'm not going to spend any more video days on it. Let's go ahead and clean up what I've got here. I need to wire the lights into the base. That's something that has to be done yet. I've got something tickling the back of my mind about how to paint that base. And that's what's going to take the time, because if it doesn't get done today, if it takes longer to dry than I was thinking, any of those things happen, then the base is not going to get finished. But at least Maria will be done today. She's looking very spry in her metallic gray suit. I'm going to put just the lightest dusting of dustings of the titanium gold over it, just to warm it up a little bit. Not to make her gold, because she's not gold. I'm actually going to mix a little bit of the metallic silver, metallic gray, in with it to even further keep it from getting too bright. So we're going to do that, and we're going to set her somewhere to dry while I tackle the base. Okay, I don't know how well the camera is picking up the subtle color difference, but she is slightly warmer in her metallic gray. Still nowhere near a gold, but definitely on the warmer side of metallic gray. And that is where she is going to find her final color. Yes, very happy with how that looks. So now all my efforts can be turned to the base. Okay, I think I'm confident enough in my procedure here to show you what I'm doing. Making my own marble. And I've seen various ways, checked out online, various ways to do this, either through airbrushing through cloths or meshes and things like that. Wasn't getting the results I was wanting to see. So basically I just I had spray painted this gray with the primer. And then I flooded it with Tamiya thinner and drew some white, flat white and flat blacks into it, and then just hit it with the airbrush again to let the air and the thinner kind of blow these specks around in a way that is, I think, organic, more organic than if I had planned everything. But then I'm going back in with, and this is where coffee nerves and age help, with a toothpick and some black, and I may even take a color like a copper or a gold or something, and drawing them in. Now I see here I've got a dot that's too thick, and I'm just dabbing that with a bit of cloth to soften it. And once I've determined my overall drift of my veining, I just kind of keeping everything with that same angle, and skittering it across the surface, and some places where the thinner is still laying on fairly thick. I know that's an oxymoron. Thinner is on thick. A heavy coat of the thinner, it's actually pooling and blossoming out, and then I can just dab it a little bit. And I think once all this is done, what I'm going to do is take a light coat of a medium gray and just blend it together like I do on starships, and that'll knock down some of the contrast, and then I can put a gloss coat over it. I think that'll give me my nice marble that I'm looking for. Yeah, this is coming up nicely. Of course, this is one big slab. When it gets to the chair, it may be a little bit more difficult. Okay, it's time to turn our attentions to the chair now, the throne. Now, and the first thing I did was I got rid of all that crap that was on the back. It wasn't appropriate. It didn't belong there. It should have been on the Hell Monument, which would have had a big old bust at the top of it. I don't know why they chose to put it on the back, but I basically just cut up some cardstock, one of these, and just glued it. I sanded the letters down to make it a little bit more even. But rather than trying to clean that off completely, I just put a piece of cardstock over the top of it. So hopefully by the time you see it, it's going to be back here. So what I'm going to do now is basically carry that same effect over top of the chair like I did the base. Now, it makes sense that it wouldn't be all cut out of the same piece of marble. So if the veining pattern doesn't match, or it looks a little bit off color, it would make all the sense in the world that it wouldn't be one monolithic piece. And I'm going to start with this piece because I still haven't decided. Yeah, I think I'm going to make the whole chair the stone. In the film, I watched those scenes again, and it almost looked like it was a mirrored texture because you could see a reflection of the floor in this on the front of the arms and on the front of the seat here. It was weird because you couldn't really see a reflection of the back of Maria's legs at any time, but it almost looked like the light pattern that was started here would get to about there, and then it would mirror off like this front piece was a mirror, but it was tilted down so that it wouldn't interfere with the camera. I don't think I'm going to get nearly that fussy with it, but I just wanted to make it look like it's a nice backdrop and a great contrast for the darker metallic that's standing in front of it. Alrighty, I've got just enough time left today, I think, that I can get a gloss coat on these parts and get the switch and the lights installed. Or no switch. I'm just going to plug it in. There's no really a need for a switch. So all I need, I have taken a very light gray with just a hint of blue in it, or duck egg blue, not a navy blue, and something like that, and gave it a blending coat. Sprayed it so that knocked down the white, and it knocked up the black and knocked down the white. So these are ready for a gloss coat, and give that a half an hour or so to dry, and we can get the spotlights wired in. Okay, I'm being very careful because this is usually about the time in the project where some last minute gremlin is going to jump up and bite me. So I am just treading very carefully. I'm trying to clean up here, make sure my soldering iron doesn't go awry. But this is the base with, and I'll clean these plastic bits off, with the lights on it. Of course, it's going to be like that by the time you put the chair and everything in it, and it plugs in from the back. Let's move that cord up out of the way. Okay, so it's going to do that. I want to hit that with one last gloss coat, I think, before I glue the chair down to it, just to make sure. But I want to make sure that also that these are protected and don't get any spray on them. Okay, one quick gloss coat done, and glued the chair down, or the throne down, and we have a marble throne. One last step, and that is to seat the pretty young thing on her pedestal and push it all the way down. Now those pegs are mighty long, like everything else. The pegs were overly lengthy. They only need to be there to hold to line up the position, not to hold the whole bloody universe together. So let's throw some CA on those, sink her down onto the holes, and we'll be done. And here you go with the lights off and the spotlights on. Now it's a shame that her belly cuts off all the light going up to her face. If this base had come out a little bit further, then the lights could have come out a little bit further, but I think that accomplishes what it needs to do. So there you have it, ladies and gents. Yeah, here you go. I got a nice little backdrop behind her now, so you don't get lost in all the confusing stuff that's normally on my table, and can appreciate just the model. Sometimes I forget that what a complicated mess I actually work in. So it's nice to have some clarity once in a while. But there you go. 1 week project. Maria from, I almost said Forbidden Planet. Oh my God, take away my nerd card. From Metropolis. Yes, she certainly belongs next to Robbie the Robot, and 3PO, and the B9 robot from Lost in Space, and the HAL 9000, and the Terminator from Terminator. But yes, in the pantheon of iconic robots of the motion pictures, she certainly was the first and the best. The long German name I'm not going to try to remember, but we'll just call her our little Maria. There you go. Well, that's the week that was. A fun little build. I didn't think it would take all week, even with the missing day of Wednesday, the big black hole in the middle of my week that I acknowledged the passing of, but don't remember any of it. That's how I spent my Wednesday, was a lot like this, which is laying back with my eyes closed and what they used to say, examining my eyelids for cracks, and didn't find any. But that's the week that was with our friend Maria. A nice little shelf piece. I mean, perfect shelf piece. And I'm going to go ahead and unplug this to make it easier. Again, a pretty simple kit to build. Do I think it was over-engineered? Maybe. Ultimately, I like how they did that with the undersuit and then the armor pieces. Again, if it had been spelled out a little bit better, maybe even just with pictures of the finished model front and back saying, hey kids, these seams here are not supposed to match up. These seams here are supposed to match up. This overlap, like obviously the one on the shoulders is obvious, but like the overlap on the shin part, or the lower from the knee down to the ankle, that overlap, not necessarily spelled out unless you really know your Maria. I think I could see where that might have caused a lot of stress to model makers who aren't that familiar with the subject. So maybe something like that, some other references would have helped. But that's the only thing I would have suggested. And scrape the stupid Metropolis off the base. Heavens to Betsy, you don't need that. And really, go nuts if you want to use this base here and the throne to try out your favorite technique. If you want to do marble, if you want to do stone, if you want to make it look like rusted steel, if you want to do steampunky on it and just rivet the heck out of it all around the edges, go nuts on it. It's really there as a canvas for you to use. But that's how do you not like a face like Maria? There you go. She wasn't much of a conversationalist, but when she got her human form, she was much better. Which is another reason I in my own private mind, you figure Rotwang wouldn't have gone through the trouble of making her out of gold if he was going to give her a human appearance anyway. He just would have used the materials that he had on hand. And that's me thinking way too deeply about this subject. So until next week, when we are going to be getting back to space, we're going to be getting back to the Clipper. And I think I may have one or two surprises for that. Y'all be good, be safe, be smart. Don't take any wooden robots. And we'll see you here next week.